So you're a vinyl guy. Me too. And you've amassed a very large record collection over the decades, right? A couple of thousand records, maybe more. And I've got a nice turntable. And you've been buying and selling cartridges for a while. You think you kind of zeroed in on the right one for you. But what about a tone arm? Now, let me just say right here. So this is not a review of the SME Series 5 tone arm. It's more of a report. To back up a little bit, I bought a SME Model 50 turntable a couple of years ago, fitted with an SME 309 arm, which they look nearly identical, but the 309 is much less expensive. It has a detachable head shell, which I thought would be cool for swapping out cartridges, but that didn't actually work out that way. But I kept thinking about the SME 5. You know, it came out in the 80s. It's still around. That says something right there in an industry where products come and go all the time. SME 5's been soldiering on decade after decade. And, you know, when I bought the SME turntable, I probably should have bought the 5 then, but I didn't. So when I heard a few months ago that SME was going to discontinue selling individual arms, they were going to only sell their arms, SME arms, on SME turntables, I thought, you know, maybe that's it. Maybe I should just pony up, get the 5, because I've been thinking about it all this time since I bought the turntable. Let me just do it. So, okay, so I did it. And this is basically a report, not a review, really, because first of all, it's a discontinued product, although there's lots of them on the used market to buy. I had the 309 arm. I swapped it out for the SME 5 with my friend Michael Trey, who's a turntable setup wizard. He did all the work. I watched. And I wasn't really sure what I was going to get in terms of the sound quality difference. The cartridge remained the same. It's an Ortofon Cadenza Blue. And obviously the turntable stayed the same. So what was the difference? I would say the difference was the equivalent of changing a turntable or even changing a cartridge. It wasn't a subtle difference, which I was hoping for, but I wasn't actually expecting, because the arms look so similar. They both have die-cast magnesium aluminum arm tubes, similar bearings, similar counterweight arrangement. I mean, one of the differences is that the SME 309 is a static balanced arm, meaning the tracking force is applied by, you know, moving the counterweight back and forth. On a dynamic balanced arm, which the Series 5 is, a spring is applying the tracking force, which is seems kind of wacky, I know, but the spring is applying the force more consistently than the static balanced arm. As the arm rides up and down over a warped record, which almost all records are somewhat warped, the stylus pressure remains more constant with a dynamic balanced arm. I'm sure there are other differences. Those are the main ones: the detachable head shell and the static versus balanced arm. But getting back to the difference in sound quality, the difference that's jumped out right away was that it was a quieter arm. Records seemed quieter. They were pretty damn quiet before. The silences were blacker than they were with the 309. And that led to a much increased difference in dynamic contrast, especially at the quieter end. Everything just sounded more focused, more tangible, more palpable. It was really exciting, especially because I know the turntable and I know the arm. I'm hearing the difference. And I can't A/B. It takes a while. It takes like over an hour to swap out the arm. So you can't A/B very easily. But I lived with the 309 arm for years, and now I was hearing this difference. Differences of contrast, dynamic contrasts, quieter surface noise, which was no slouch before. And the other thing I noticed were the highs. The highs were just so much more tangible, transparent, palpable, whatever words you wanted to use, airy. And that also helped stereo imaging be more focused, more real sounding. And again, by significant amounts. This is an expensive arm. It's $5,500 or $6,000. So the inventory that's already out there in the pipeline, there's still models to be had. But if that's out of range and you have a turntable that you can swap out arms for, Riga makes fantastic arms starting around $400. I think it's the RB200 or 220. And this other company, Jelco, they make arms for also starting around $1,000. They're both really good. So if you have a turntable for a while and you can swap out the arm on it, thinking about a Riga or a Jelco or an SME, there's lots of SMEs out there on the used marketplace, think about it, because I am really excited by what I heard. Now, I will say, in the years that I've been an audiophile, I've had not a lot of them, a lot of different arms run through my system, but when I owned a Linn, I actually did go through some arms. But then later, I also had a Linn Ittok, and then I used Unipivot arms. I had a Naim Arro, and also another Unipivot, the Graham Phantom. Those were all on my Linn. And then after the Linn, I had a VPI Classic that used a VPI Unipivot tone arm. And after that came this turntable, the SME. So I've gone through a bunch. But this change from the SME 309 to the SME 5 was, as I've said, satisfyingly, was very satisfying. And I am so glad I did it. Okay, so one of the records I played, one of the records I played was Herbie Hancock's classic record, Maiden Voyage. Herbie Hancock is on piano, and Ron Carter's on bass, Tony Williams is on drums, there's horns. But the thing is, I played this record over the decades on various systems, but it never sounded like this. There was more there. The spaces between the players were better, more clearly defined. The energy in the room was more present. It was pretty freaking exciting. So then I played this record, Charlie Mingus, Tonight at Noon. Look at that cover, man. So this was recorded, I think, in 1957. But there is life in the grooves. Now, Charlie Mingus plays bass, and it was a very intense session, and you almost feel like he's attacking the bass. He's just slamming it. He's just pulling those strings. He's yanking them. He's screaming his guts out every time you just hear him, just wailing, sort of encouraging the band. And it is a thrill. I'm getting goosebumps thinking about it right now because it had so much energy in the grooves. Dude, I mean, it's freaking forever ago. And yeah, it's still there. It's still in the grooves. It's just a matter of getting it out of the groove, onto the stylus, into your system. And somehow, some way, the SME5 was doing it. Now that record is raucous. That record kicks butt. So to calm down a little bit from that, I also played Herbie Mann's Family of Man. They're both on Atlantic Records. They both have that sound, but the Family of Man record is more, it's more laid back, but it's kind of has an Afro-Cuban rhythm thing going, and that energy, that forward motion of the musicians was just so incredible. Now, Herbie Mann plays flute, and he's sort of floating above everybody else, but they're cooking. They're definitely cooking, and that kind of, it's hard to sit still when you hear this music. The Mingus certainly, but even the Herbie Mann record, it just has this, they're going for it. You feel that energy, and it's exhilarating. To change pace, to finish up, I played this Eno record, 801 Live. Now, Eno is a studio guy. I mean, he is a creature of the studio. That's where he does all of his magic, right? So there's not that much live Eno to hear, especially in a band context. So this, especially with Phil Manzarek on guitar, it rocks, and it rocks pretty damn hard. And Phil Manzarek's guitar is just screaming. It is just pinning you back in the seat, or pin me back in my seat. So it was pretty, it was fun. It was really fun. And this is not a record I play all the time, but it's one I've owned probably 20 years. Maybe it's too old now, but back in this day, in the 70s, he had this band that cooked. I think this was a short-lived tour. I think he had some health issues in the middle of this, which kind of derailed the tour. I think this is the one that kind of had an abrupt ending. But whatever, on this record, Eno is fully present. He sings, And it's definitely got, I think he's even processing the sound of the applause, because the applause sounds kind of phasey and swirling around like not normal applause. So you get the gist. If the message here is, if you have a turntable, got a nice one, got a sizable record collection, you've invested a lot in your music and in analog, maybe, just maybe, it's time to consider upgrading to a better tone arm. And as I pointed out, for starting around $400 for the Riga, doesn't have to break the bank. So, I think my work here is done. My name is Steve Guttenberg, and this is the Audiophiliac Daily Show. And I always want to thank you guys for coming back again and again and again. But if you're not a subscriber, please subscribe. Hit that button right down there. When you do, hit the little notification bell so you'll be notified every time there's a brilliant new episode. You can also follow me on Twitter at AudiophiliacMan, on Instagram at steve.guttenberg. What else? Check out the Patreon at patreon.com/audiophiliac. But while you're here, check out the playlist. There's playlists for speaker reviews and headphone reviews and music reviews and electronics reviews. Tons and tons of stuff. Hundreds and hundreds of episodes for your viewing pleasure. With that, I think my work actually is at last complete. So thank you guys for watching, and I hope to see you back here again very, very soon. Bye-bye.